Good morning, everyone. We'll just give it another minute till 10 o'clock, and then we'll get started. Hope you all are doing well today. If you'd like, our talk today is, our webinar today is Who's Hiding in Your Landscape? Dealing with Critters. And this is going to be presented by Dr. Bill Kern. If you are so inclined, please go ahead and put your name and maybe any critters you might have been dealing with in your landscape in that chat box, because you may have noticed your microphones have been muted. So, we'd like you to definitely interact, but please type your questions either in the chat box or in the Q&A box, and we'll make sure we catch those before the end of the webinar today. So it's 10 o'clock now. I see people are logging on and chatting. That's fantastic. So I'll go ahead and welcome everybody to the Florida Friendly Landscaping Professional Webinar Series. And once again, today's webinar is Who's Hiding in Your Landscape? Dealing with Critters with Dr. Bill Kern. This webinar has been approved for one FFLCP and one FNGLA CEU. The webinar itself is free, but there is a $10 administration fee to receive a certificate of continuing education. And I'll go ahead and I'll put a link to that in the chat box a little later in the webinar. We will submit the CEUs to the licensing agency by Friday. So don't be concerned if you don't get something back today or tomorrow, but we will definitely get it to you by Friday. And then just to remind you that this webinar is part of a monthly webinar series held on the second Tuesday of the month at 10 a.m. The next webinar is Invasive Invaders, Historical Invasive Plants and the Future. And this will be presented by Christian Wanamaker. Later on in this month, we are offering a Green Stormwater Infrastructure webinar. This is a partnership with DEP and Ferguson Waterworks. The presentation will be on September 21st. It's also eligible for CEUs, for FFLCP, and Landscape Architecture Advanced Code Credit. That webinar will be municipal and regulatory information for green stormwater infrastructure. And also you'll see a survey invitation pop up at the end of this webinar. So please take a moment to fill this out, as it really helps us determine what educational programming to offer in the future. And with that, I'll turn this over to Tom Wickman to introduce today's speaker.
Claire, thank you so much. As Claire said, I'm Tom Wickman, the Assistant Director of the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program, and I'm so pleased to be able to introduce our speaker today. Our speaker is Dr. Bill Kern. He's an Associate Professor in the Department of Entomology and Nematology at the Fort Lauderdale Research and Education Center, part of the University of Florida. He served as an Assistant Extension Specialist with the Department of Wildlife Ecology and Conservation from 1993 until 2000. He served in the Department of Entomology and Nematology at the Fort Lauderdale Research and Education Center since 2000. His areas of expertise are urban entomology, Africanized honeybees, vertebrate pest management, nuisance wildlife management, and medical veterinary entomology. Today, Dr. Kern is going to provide suggestions on how to manage some of the problem critters that you may be dealing with in the landscape. It's my pleasure to turn the floor over to Dr. Bill Kern. Bill, go ahead and take it away.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And okay, hopefully everybody can see that now.
Good.
Okay. So we're going to be talking about vertebrates in the landscape, some of which are nuisance wildlife, which means that they're native species that sometimes can be problematic. And then we're also going to be talking about vertebrate pest control. So those are mostly going to be invasive species that are generally more serious pests. All right, and so we'll start out with bats, because we've just gotten into the bat exclusion season, which starts August 15th and runs until April 15th. So if you have a colony of bats that's in a structure that's causing problems, this is the time of year that you want to go ahead and exclude them. It's after the baby season, so the young bats are all flying now. And it's warm enough that generally all the bats are going to go out of the roost every night. So, so this is the bat exclusion season. The bat breeding season, when you can't do exclusions, generally starts April 16th and goes till August 14th, 15th. And there are some significant rules about exclusion. How long to leave the excluder devices up. You can't use traps for bats. You can only exclude them from the structure so they can't get back in. And those rules are generally listed under the FWC guidelines for nuisance wildlife. So this is the common way to deal with bats that are roosting in buildings. And in Florida, the primary species that we deal with are the southeastern free-tailed bat and also the evening bat. Occasionally we will have some other species get into structures such as the southeastern myotis, and then it's mostly a cave bat, but occasionally the females will roost in structures for their maternity colonies. And then if you get down into the Keys, we have Molossus molossus, which is the velvety free-tailed bat, which is originally from Cuba and basically occurs in the lower Keys. So far hasn't found its way up to the mainland. So when we have bats that are getting into structures, the simplest way to exclude them is to use some type of excluder device. The simplest one is to use bird netting, and this is 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch bird netting. You can use smaller, but don't use larger. So the bird netting that you use on fruit trees is inappropriate for excluding bats because it's too large. The bats get caught in the mesh. So 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch mesh industrial bird netting is sort of the maximum size you can use. You seal it on the top and on the sides and have the bottoms open. The bats can then come out the bottom and fly away, but when they come back, they're going to land up near the roost opening and they can't get back in. And so it works as a one-way device. So this is a series. This is actually an evening bat colony in a house, and we have our exclusion netting up. And the bats have come out after dusk, and you know they're a little confused at first, but eventually they will start going down the wall underneath the netting and will fly out the bottom. And so it's a very simple method of control. Now, this is for the eviction process. After all the bats have been evicted and you no longer have any bat activity around the openings, then you'll go in and you will permanently seal them with hardware cloth. And I usually use either 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch hardware cloth. The 1/8 inch actually will also keep other things out like, you know, Australian or smoky brown cockroaches that sometimes like to get either in the attic or underneath the tiles of the roof. All right, so we've talked a little bit about bats. Next one is moles. I saw that somebody was having problems with moles. Throughout most of Florida, the only mole we have is the eastern mole, Scalopus aquaticus. And this is, even though it says aquaticus, these are not aquatic moles. Up in Georgia around Okefenokee and just sort of barely getting into Florida, we also have star-nosed moles. Now, they really are more aquatic. They are found on the edges of streams and ponds, but they're not very common in Florida. So the eastern mole is the dominant mole that we have in landscapes here in Florida. These are insectivores. So even though people have blamed them for eating the roots of their grass, they don't. These are mostly eating earthworms, beetle larvae, mole crickets, things like that. And a lot of times the damage that you see to the turf is caused by the insects that they're eating. So if you have a bad white grub problem and the moles are digging around in the roots to eat the white grubs, the grass has been killed because their roots were eaten by the white grubs, not by the moles. So moles can sometimes be a nuisance if you like that perfect lawn. Usually we say just tolerate them, but I know some people are concerned because the mounds that they make, the foraging tunnels that they make, can be a problem for some people because they're a tripping hazard. So sometimes moles can be a problem for homeowners. So the options for mole control is tolerance. There are repellents. Usually these are castor oil emulsions that are applied to the soil. And usually they work best in clay soils or highly organic soils. Sandy soils, they don't last very long, so they have to be reapplied almost weekly, especially if it's during the rainy season. If it's during the dry season, you can a lot of times can go for 2 or 3 weeks between treatments. There are also traps. These can be live pitfall traps or lethal traps. There's several different types. There are also poisons that are available for use on moles. And as of July 1st, 2008, it is now legal to use these products. Prior to 2008, it was against the law to use poisons on native wildlife, and eastern moles are native wildlife. However, they changed the law in 2008 that said if the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services has registered a product and you use that product according to the label, that is legal. And so now we can use some of the mole poisons. Some of the different styles of traps, there's the classic harpoon style trap. A lot of people know it doesn't work super well in Florida because of our sandy soil. And very often, unless you pre-punch the spikes through the tunnel, when the trigger is released and the spikes come down, the trap actually gets kicked out of the ground. So with the choker loop traps, like this Nash trap, the animal is caught between the choker loop and the frame of the trap. And so this seems to work very well in our sandy soils. There are other types of traps, such as the trapline mole trap, which is a pincer style trap. And a lot of commercial nuisance wildlife trappers like it because it's not extremely expensive. You compare that to something like the Easy Set Mole Eliminator or the Talprid mole trap. You know, those are going to be about $30 a piece versus $7 for the trapline mole trap. With these traps, especially with this trapline mole trap, you have to make sure that you secure it with a wire in case the animal gets caught and isn't killed right away, that it doesn't drag your trap away. These other two styles generally are going to kill the animal fairly quickly, and you don't have to worry about them being dragged off. There are a couple of mole baits that are now legal to use in Florida. Talparid is a worm-shaped bait that uses bromothallin, and you have to put this down inside the tunnels. That's what the label says. And if you don't, you're likely to kill local birds, and especially birds like ibis and things that might eat earthworms. So these baits have to be put into the tunnels. Kaput mole gel bait uses warfarin. And again, you have to inject the bait into the tunnels and not on the surface. Now, in good portions of Florida and all the way up into Georgia and Alabama and southern Mississippi, even South Carolina, we have the southeastern pocket gopher, Geomys pinnatus. Now, this is actually a rodent, and they do feed on plant material. And so they will eat roots, they'll eat bulbs, they'll eat tubers, and generally, and one of their favorite foods is the rhizomes of bahia. So they can be a problem in bahia pastures. So in the areas where they occur, they only occur in those habitats with deep sandy soil, and they push the soil up to the surface. And because of this behavior, in North Florida, these are called sandy mounders, all right, because they make these mounds of sand. And then if you go up into Georgia or Alabama, a lot of times sandy mounders has been corrupted into salamanders, all right? But these are pocket gophers. And usually you can tell pocket gopher mounds from things like fire ant mounds because they are more or less in a row. So for pocket gophers, tolerance is a possibility. Just kick the mounds over, spread the dirt around. Underground fences to protect root crops and ornamentals. This is used quite a bit in the western United States, where they have a lot more species of pocket gophers, and pocket gophers are much more abundant. So they would actually bury these cages that has usually hardware cloth, and then fill the cages with soil and plant your plants in there so that the gophers can't get to them. There are some live traps. Usually these are homemade, but I have seen now they've started selling them commercially. Stovepipe traps, where the animal goes in, pushes the door open, the door falls behind them, and they're caught. And you can take them, and because they're a native species, you can take them and release them into the wild. Lethal traps include choker loop traps and cinch traps. And there are poisons that are registered with FDACs to control pocket gophers. All right. So these are examples of some of the different gopher traps. This is like the McGee or the Victor Quickset. And these traps are designed to grasp the animal. So you always have to secure them with a piece of wire. And this will allow or prevent the pocket gopher from dragging your trap away. So it doesn't often kill the gopher. It simply grasps them, penetrate their abdomen, and holds them there. And then you have to pull them out and usually dispatch them with a blow to the head. There are some other traps that I kind of like better. This is the Gophinator gopher trap. similar to what we saw as the cinch trap for moles, although it's larger. This is the Lanesboro gopher trap, which is essentially almost like a big rat trap. Good, strong springs, and these usually kill the animal outright. This type of gopher trap is designed for western gophers, which are about half the size of the southeastern pocket gopher. So quite often they don't work as well because they're just not big enough. The same is true for the black hole gopher trap. They're designed for western pocket gophers and really aren't too effective on our large southeastern pocket gopher. All right. Now, the rodents that we are most often concerned about are the commensal rodents: roof rats, Norway rats, and house mice. So these are invasive exotic species. I know that's a redundant statement. So all of the members of the Invasive Species Council, I'm sorry. So these are invasive species. Roof rats are the dominant rat in urban, suburban, and residential areas, and also can be a problem in agricultural areas. Norway rats are pretty uncommon in Florida. The only time I've encountered them has been in the inner city, and occasionally we have a problem with them in certain agricultural areas, such as places where they're feeding livestock. And then house mice are a problem in commercial buildings, apartment buildings, multifamily homes, as well as individual homes or single family homes. So the house mouse is originally from Europe, was accidentally brought into the United States from Europe. There's actually 2 species, and there's some discrepancy as to which one we have, whether it's Mus musculus or Mus domesticus. It doesn't really matter because they both look very similar to one another. They're small, kind of a grayish brown color. The tail is hairless and scaly, and that's one of the characters that's going to separate it from all of our native mice. All of our native mice and rats have a furred tail. So these are house mice, and you can see they're somewhat variable in color. These were all collected in the Apopka area during one of the big mouse plagues. But they're all generally going to be some version of gray or brown colored, and usually they have sort of a tannish belly. Now, our native mice in the genus Peromyscus, they have a white belly, generally have white feet, and they have a bicolored tail. The tail is brown on top and white on the bottom, and it's covered with fine fur. Right? So this is a native mouse, and so if you catch it in the house, you can take it outside and let it go. It's not a problem. If you catch these guys legally, you are not supposed to release them outside. So then usually that means you're going to have to euthanize them. All right, Norway rat, also known as the brown rat, street rat, sewer rat, wharf rat. It is a large, robust rat. You can see by that the tail is naked and covered with scales. And in this case, the tail is slightly less than the head and body length. The head is sort of blunt, eyes are relatively small, and the ears are relatively small. And it's a heavy-bodied rodent. So these tend to be more of a problem in inner cities. So this is the famous New York rat that people always talk about. And they can reach, an adult male is going to reach a pound to a pound and a half. People who tell you that, you know, they saw a 10-pound rat, they saw an opossum or a nutria. The one that we tend to encounter throughout Florida is the roof rat. So it has a more pointed snout, relatively larger eyes, relatively larger ears, and then again, a naked scaly tail that is longer than the head and body length. And none of our other rodents have a tail that's longer than the head and body length. So if you have a really long tail, the only thing it could be is a roof rat. So they have 3 different color forms that we've found in Florida. And these are our 3 individuals that I collected in St. Johns County. And you can see that there's black with a slate gray belly, grayish brown with a tan or buff belly. And then the last one is brownish gray above and sort of a cream colored below. And it's possible to actually have all 3 of these color forms in the same litter. As a matter of fact, these 3 individuals came from the same trap line in St. Johns County. There you can see, this is an adult female, and you can see that pointed nose, pretty large ears, moderately large eye, and that really long tail. And her tail's even been stunted a little bit because the tip was chopped off, or she lost it to a dog or a cat. So this is the roof rat. Droppings are pretty easy to recognize. They're pointed at both ends. They're about 1/4 of an inch long to slightly longer than 1/4 of an inch. And what I look for is this distinctive banana shape. They're not all going to look like that, but you're going to find a fair number of them that have this banana shape to it. All right. Norway rats and house mice do not have droppings like this. Neither do any of our native rodents. So if you see these banana-shaped droppings that are about 1/4 of an inch long, you're dealing with a roof rat. Now, roof rats are sort of infamous because of their fondness for fruit. They will feed on things like papaya, mangoes, oranges, and any of the sweet citrus. So I'm including things like tangerines, tangelos, any of the sweet citrus they will feed on. And very often they will feed on them while they're still up in the tree. And you'll see them actually leave the hollowed out fruit hanging from the tree. I used to get lots of calls about this, and people would call me and say that they had fruit bats eating their oranges. And I said, no, you misspelled that. It's R-A-T, not B-A-T. But this is sort of classic roof rat damage to a sweet citrus. Grapefruit are also sweet citrus in that the rats can feed on them. Now, by sour citrus, I'm talking primarily about lemons and limes. And lemons and limes have an acid content that's too high for these rodents to eat. It'll actually burn their mouth. So they won't feed on lemons and limes generally, except for Myers lemon. Remember, Myers lemon is a hybrid, and it does have a highly acid fruit. So the rats won't eat the flesh of the fruit, but they will eat the skin of the fruit. And sometimes they do some really amazing things. These were a couple of Myers lemons, and the fruit was completely peeled and left hanging on the tree. There was another tree nearby that they weren't bothering at all, but This one was in contact with a fence. So the rats were running down the fence to get into this tree and were feeding on the rinds. And I told the people, you know, they're perfectly safe to eat. Just wash the rat spit off and you can use them. Now, what people, you know, I've heard so many times about homeowners associations that won't let people have fruit trees because they claim it will attract rats, and then they plant palm trees. Well, palms are a great source of food for rodents, both squirrels, our native squirrels, and roof rats. So this is a Christmas palm. Produces large clusters of fruit a couple of times during the year. Queen palms, and they will produce bushels of fruit. Now, luckily, we have a fungus that has started attacking queen palms, and we're losing a lot of our queen palms. So I call this fusarium that attacks queen palms a biocontrol agent. They will go after things like coconuts. So they've actually chewed through the husk, then chewed through the nut to get to the meat inside. So, I mean, this is a dedicated rat that is willing to chew its way through something like a coconut. They do need protein in their diet. They don't just eat fruit. And one of their favorite protein sources are snails, because let's face it, snails are abundant and easy to catch. So a lot of times you'll see where the rats have gathered up a bunch of snails in some protected place to eat them, and they'll leave piles of shells behind. So when you see this, you know, okay, I'm dealing with a roof rat infestation. So how do we control roof rats? Exclusion and prevention, keep them out of the house. Make sure all of your vents, your attic vents, your soffit vents, your ridge vents, gable vents, vents into your crawl space are all well screened and with hardware cloth. Nylon window screen does not even slow them up. You need to use hardware cloth to keep rats and squirrels out of your attic space or your crawl space. Snap traps are widely used, and they are very effective and humane. Some people may not think that, but they do kill the animal quickly and humanely. Habitat modification, so eliminating sources of food, and people are the #1 source of food for roof rats. Whether it's the plants that we plant in our yard, or how we dispose of garbage, or how and where we feed our pets outside. These are all things that can contribute to a roof rat infestation. Glue traps and live traps can sometimes be useful. However, glue traps tend not to work well for roof rats because they're too strong. A lot of times they will pull out of the trap, and you'll know that you've caught a roof rat because the trap will be full of guard hairs, and you will never catch that rat again in a glue trap. They have been taught that glue traps are bad. Live traps, again, rats are generally nervous about new things in their environment. And so very often they won't go into a live trap. They'll sometimes smell around it. They may push it over. But it's usually live traps are less effective than something like a snap trap. Poison baits in tamper-resistant bait stations. And we're going to go into this in detail because there's big changes coming from the US EPA. All right, but all poison baits that are placed outdoors have to be in a tamper-resistant bait station by law. It's on the label. And remember, the label is the law. Some of the important things are, make sure that the sewer stacks are screened. This can be some hardware cloth and a hose clamp. That's all it takes. This keeps rats from going down from the roof, down through the sewer stack to come out the backside of the toilet. In New York, they actually put a flapper valve, a special valve that only allows material to go in one direction. So if the rats come up through the drain, they can't get out, and so that they can't get into the living space. One of the big problems that we have here in Florida is our seasonal residents. They leave for 6 months and the drains dry out, the toilets dry out, so the rats can come from the sewer stack or come from the sewer and just go through the drains, come out of the toilet, and now they're in the house for many months and can do all kinds of damage. So figuring out how to secure your toilets when you're gone. And sometimes it's just as simple as taking some cellophane, going over the top to keep the water from evaporating. Sometimes that's all it takes. Snap traps. A good snap trap will kill a rat quickly and humanely. Some people find this distasteful. That's understandable. But as far as a humane way to dispatch an animal, this is actually pretty humane. And you can see this is a roof rat because look how long that tail is. The tail is longer than the head and body length. Now, if you're using snap traps outside, I always recommend using a trapping station. And even inside, it's usually a good idea, whether you're trapping roof rats in your attic or a shed, or just the outside perimeter of your property, or let's say you have a house mouse population that has gotten started in your house. These trap stations protect the traps, protect children and pets from encountering the traps. And so it's a good safety measure. Roof rats like to run along pipes, conduits, rafters, and so a lot of times you want to secure your trap that way. And especially on round things like round conduit and pipes, if you try to use string or wire, very often the rats can just push the trap over to the side. So this method uses, you can use roofing nails or eye screws on either side of the trap, and then take heavy rubber bands and go from one side, go underneath the pipe, and attach it to the other side. All right, this rubber band holds the trap in place. They can't push it off. And this is a simple, effective way to mount traps where you're seeing rat activity. And if rats were using this piece of conduit, this top surface would be black from the marking, the grease and dirt on their feet and belly. There are electrocuting rodent traps. I particularly like the name of this one, the Rat Zapper 2000. And I've told a lot of people about this, and they like it because they never have to touch the animal. When the rat or mouse goes in, because they're two different size traps, it touches a metal plate on the bottom and a metal plate at the end, and it creates a circuit. And so the electric shock goes through their heart and kills them instantly. So it's a very humane, and then you just take and dump the body into a paper bag, wrap it up, put it in the trash. All right, tamper-proof bait stations. And if you are going to use any rodenticides, it has to be placed in a tamper-proof bait station if it is going to be exposed to wildlife, children, pets, livestock. So if it's outside, it has to be in a tamper-proof bait station, period. Okay, there are some big changes coming. The EPA has done a revision, or is in the process of reviewing all of the rodenticides. And they have an interim proposal in place. We are supposed to get the final proposal of rule changes sometime after October 1st of this year. They said it was coming out during the first quarter of the fiscal year, which starts October 1st. So they looked at all of these compounds, and essentially this is all of the rodenticides that are currently registered in the United States. So some of these are second generation anticoagulants. Some of them, like warfarin and difascinone, are first generation anticoagulants. And then some, like bromethalin and cholecalciferol. Bromethalin is a mitochondrial poison. Cholecalciferol is a calcium releasing agent. This is essentially vitamin D3 that causes calcium to become mobile in the rodent and usually causes heart problems for them. So the proposal from EPA is to classify all second generation anticoagulants, anticoagulant rodenticides, and first generation anticoagulant pesticides, rodenticides, packaged in quantities greater than 4 pounds. Okay, so all of the second generation anticoagulant rodenticides will become restricted use pesticides. The first generation anticoagulant products that are packaged in quantities of greater than or equal to 4 pounds will be restricted use products. All right. And the purpose of this is to restrict how the public can use or get access to these products. You can still go to your county extension office and take your restricted use pesticide license, private agriculture or private public. All right. So the retail sale and use by these anticoagulant products is going to be restricted primarily to certified applicators. So that's pest control operators and those people with restricted use pesticide permits. And then persons under their direct supervision. So in the case of pest control operators, that would be the pest control ID card holders. In the case of agricultural, let's say farmers, their farm employees can do it under their supervision. All right. Zinc phosphide and strychnine baits will become restricted use pesticides. My understanding is zinc phosphide and probably strychnine are usually restricted use pesticides anyways. Most of the zinc phosphide, like zinc phosphide agricultural baits are going to be are restricted use right now. But all of the zinc phosphide baits and all the strychnine baits are going to become restricted use pesticides once these new rules go into effect. They are still going to allow the public to purchase bromothallin and cholecalciferol, but it can only be in single-use plastic bait stations containing less than 1 pound of bait. All right. And then for those situations where you're using bromothallin bait for use in burrows, like for ground squirrels out west, they can be no more than 1 pound of bromothallin. I'm not sure why they're doing this. Lately, bromothallin has been the #1 cause of fatalities in dogs because bromothallin has no antidote and has no symptoms until just before death. So usually by the time the dog is brought into the veterinarian, it's already too late, and the animal will probably have to be euthanized. There also are new requirements. You have to wear a respirator. And so this is essentially a cartridge respirator, not a dust mask, but a cartridge respirator if you're using any of these types of baits. So meal baits, tracking powders, grain meals, nobody uses these anymore. So that's sort of a redundant thing. But even if you're using pellets, whether they're paraffinized or non-paraffinized pellets, unless they are in tamper-resistant bait stations, permanently sealed in tamper-resistant bait stations, you have to wear this respirator. And that requires, a fit test, training, documented training, and also a medical evaluation to prove that you can safely use the respirator. They're also going to require gloves when using any of these above products. And they've made some pretty strict rules. They're saying 14 mil nitrile gloves, but I don't know very many of those products that are available. All right, you have to also do a post-application follow-up if you're using anticoagulant rodenticides. So you have to do a carcass search, collection, and disposal, and document that you've done this. So this is something that's new. And then this is for all of the 2nd-generation anticoagulants and the 1st-generation anticoagulants that are restricted use pesticides. All dead and dying non-target animals have to be reported according to the EPA's pesticide incident reporting website. And there's the website there. And you're supposed to do that as soon as possible. So, you better make sure you did things right, or you're going to be, admitting to doing something wrong. So bait has to be in a tamper-proof or tamper-resistant bait station. And the bait needs to be secured inside. So usually what we're doing is we have metal support rods inside the bait compartment, and then bait, either blocks or the soft baits, are threaded on those rods. And then that way, even if an animal shakes the bait station, the bait's not coming out. Some people get kind of imaginative, although this turned out to be a really good nesting spot for English sparrows. I really like these top loaders produced by Eaton because they are really user friendly. So if you have to put them on surfaces like rafters, indoors, or along the running board of privacy fences, or the support pipes of chain link fences, these work really well. There's multiple ways they can be secured. The bait blocks are secured inside of this vertical column. Whoops. All right. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out how to go back. Oh, there. Okay. And they also now have a liquid baiter that you can put in here. So situations where you have a lot of food available, but moisture is in short supply, this is the way to go. One of these top loading bait stations with the liquid baiter. It looks sort of like a hamster watering bottle. Armadillos. Armadillos are, the 9-banded armadillo is not native to the eastern United States. They made their way around the Gulf of Mexico from Texas, and became established. Now, prior to about 10,000 years ago, we had an armadillo that looked like this, but was just bigger. And then if you go back 100,000 years, we actually had giant armadillos in Florida. So the armadillo is not completely alien to Florida. It has just been replaced by a southern relative when our native armadillos went extinct. And armadillo trapping really is surprisingly easy. Use a large live trap and then use a guiding fence to guide them into the trap. And this can be the wall of a building. It can be a log. This is a piece of roofing tin that is held up by stakes. Any of these will work. So the animal comes along, hits this border, follows the border, and you'll notice that I have the underside of the trap, the wire, covered with mulch. And that's so the armadillo can't feel the wire under its feet. So he'll walk in until he hits the trigger and will be caught. And you don't need any bait when trapping armadillos. You just need to have some type of guide to lead them in. Some people get very elaborate. This one's using flashing and has multiple traps. This was on the rough of a golf course that was having problems with armadillos. But you see the idea. You have a low fence that guides them into the trap, and that's all it takes. Raccoons. Raccoons are, again, a native wildlife species. They're powerful, they're adaptive, they're clever. In terms of their brain per body size, they actually have a larger brain than, say, something like a dog. So they are relatively intelligent. They learn things. Some of those things we don't want them to learn, and they learn from their moms. So what are some of the problems? They can be a nuisance around the landscape, getting into garbage cans looking for food, denning in attics and sheds, digging holes in turf areas and plant beds, looking for earthworms or turtle eggs. They are potential vectors for rabies and distemper here in the southeastern United States. So what are the control options? Well, first of all, don't feed raccoons. It is illegal in the state of Florida to put out food for raccoons. Now, saying you're putting out food for feral cats and the raccoons are coming and eating it, that's not going to pass muster. You're still feeding the raccoons. So don't feed raccoons. It creates these unnaturally high populations and increases the spread of disease. Tolerance. You see a raccoon in your yard, doesn't necessarily need to be trapped and removed just because you see it. And if you see it during the day, that doesn't mean anything. Most neighborhoods are quiet during the day when all the adults are at work, the kids are at school. All the dogs are locked up in the house. So that is the time of day when it's actually quiet and safe for raccoons to forage for food in people's yards. So just because you see a raccoon during the day doesn't mean it's sick. Exclusion. Electric fences on the ground will help to keep them out. However, if they find a really good food source, they will actually learn to take the shock to get to it. So you have to use electric fences if you want to keep them out of an area, say out of a garden, before they get used to going into it. One common problem we hear about is them getting on the steps of a pool and defecating in the water. And you can stop that by using plastic sheeting on the steps. So here's staining caused by raccoon feces in the pool on the upper step. And this is a learned behavior. So here's mom, and then her two kits are learning that, okay, if you want to hide your poop, you go to a pool or go to water and defecate in the water. And it's a way for them to hide their presence. And other things like to eat raccoons, coyotes, foxes, bobcats, even dogs and cats. So the idea is that they want to hide their presence as much as possible. And sometimes it can be something as simple as a couple of sheets of plastic roofing, corrugated plastic roofing held in place with a couple of concrete blocks. If the raccoons can't get to the top step easily, they're not going to jump into the deep water and swim over here. They will find someplace else to go to the bathroom. Another method that people have claimed works is to use an inflatable alligator or one of those alligator heads that floats in the swimming pool. Because alligators are a predator of raccoons, it's thought that they will help to keep raccoons from getting too familiar with your swimming pool. If they get up into dens or up into attics, excluding the female without removing the kits is just going to cause problems. She will rip a hole through the roof to get back to her babies. The simplest way to deal with this is to take some cotton balls and soak them in coyote urine, or you can also use male raccoon urine and throw them up around the attic space. All right, mom smells that and it's a threat because boar raccoons will kill kits. So she will move her babies to try to get them away from this potential predator that she smells. So there's different types. There's coon urine, bandit coon, raccoon urine, shake away, which is actually a coyote urine powder. So these are things that can be used to encourage a sow raccoon to move her kits rather than trapping. And usually live trapping and relocation is not an option. Because raccoons are potential rabies vector species, they can't be relocated, especially if you are in a county that is under rabies quarantine. A raccoon may not be moved from the property where it was caught. It has to be euthanized, usually at the site. Right? So all the nuisance wildlife trappers that tell you that they're going to take Ricky Raccoon out and release him in the Everglades or out on the national forest, generally they're lying to you, because the law says that they have to be euthanized. Live traps and snares are legal in the state of Florida, at least for the time being. Live traps are still going to be legal in the future. There is some new rules coming out about snares, that locking snares will not be legal anymore. Now, also, these are currently all illegal in the state of Florida. However, if the new rule changes take place by FWC, these will, you can use these without a steel trap permit, which is now required. So the rules about using traps is changing in the state of Florida. So you're going to need to be aware of those changes when they come about. All right, domestic birds, feral chickens, feral peafowl, feral guinea hens, feral pigeons. These are all classified as feral livestock, and they are the property of whosever property they are on. Florida has not been a free-range state since 1957. So if you let your chickens run free and your neighbor catches them and decides to eat them, that's your problem. Because if they are running free, all right, we are not a free-range state. So you have to keep these feral or these livestock species, unless they're racing pigeons that are involved in either training or a race, they have to be confined by law. Sometimes it's a problem. You know, in Tampa and in Key West, Key West has actually protected their chickens. There's some question about whether or not they can do that, but nobody's really wanted to go after them to find out. Peafowl are loud and obnoxious, and they can be very destructive because they're a big bird, and they eat plants. So they will go through a garden and they will strip all the leaves off of your tomato and pepper plants. They will strip all the leaves and flowers off of your bougainvilleas. So they can be highly destructive. They're also very loud. And, you know, if you're trying to sleep in the morning and one of these things goes off, it is very disruptive. So because peafowl are feral livestock, feral peafowl belong to the property owner and can be trapped, caught, and sold. If they are trespassing livestock, in other words, somebody claims ownership of the animals, those people are legally responsible for any damage that they do. So if they get up and you know, they pull the caulking off of your roof and damage your roof, the owner, the person who claims ownership of those peafowl, can be responsible for it. And be careful, some local governments have passed ordinances to protect peafowl and other domestic birds. And this may not quite be constitutional, but who wants to fight it all the way up to the state Supreme Court. So my recommendation to people, at least in Miami-Dade, who have been stymied by their ordinance, is to just send a bill for all damages to the Board of County Commissioners saying, all right, you've claimed ownership of these peafowl, so you're responsible for the damage. That has sort of changed some of their views. So peafowl will damage a lot of our garden plants, a lot of ornamental plants as well. And then finally, feral domestic waterfowl, things like Muscovy ducks, non-migratory mallards. So if you see a mallard in the summertime in Florida, it is a feral domestic duck. Peking ducks, which are essentially white mallards. Chinese African geese. I'm still not quite sure about Egyptian geese. What I think they probably fall under this as well. So the problems with these birds, geese and swans are grazers. So they eat lots of plant material and they poop a lot. Muscovy ducks can hybridize with some of our native birds. Every once in a while, you will see a hybrid of either a Muscovy and a Muscovy and a mallard, or a Muscovy and a Florida mottled duck. So that's another problem that they can cause. So genetic pollution. All right, so they're grazers. They don't differentiate between weeds and landscape plantings and vegetables and flowers. They produce a lot of manure each day, right? This can be a public health issue. It can also be a wildlife health issue. For example, several years ago, we had an outbreak of a Muscovy virus that was killing the Muscovy ducks. And luckily, it didn't jump to our native ducks, but it was killing a lot of Muscovy ducks here in Broward County. And again, you can have the problem with genetic pollution from these feral domestic ducks. Peking ducks, domestic mallards are very closely related to Florida's mottled duck, and they readily hybridize. If they hybridize, all right, you've contaminated the gene pool. All right, so how do you control feral waterfowl? Discourage feral waterfowl harassment. Don't feed them. If you don't feed them, they won't hang around. Reduce populations by finding the nest. You can shake the eggs and return them to the nest. That's called addling the eggs. You essentially are killing the embryo in the egg. Replace the eggs with plastic eggs. Remove all but one or two of the eggs. Remove all of the eggs just causes the hen to lay a new clutch. Another method is called oiling, where you take vegetable oil and cover the eggs with vegetable oil, and it will cause the egg to suffocate. Catch them on their property and sell them or eat them, because remember, feral livestock belongs to the property owner. We have lots of other exotic birds. Some of these were deliberately brought into the United States and released. Some of them are escapees, escape pets. Some of them, as a matter of fact, most of these are going to be ones that have been brought in and released from the pet trade. Spot-breasted oriole actually came from the Caribbean, and it's a nuisance species on lots of islands now. All right, we're out of time, but I know that there were questions about iguanas. especially the green iguanas. This is an adult male. This is what people see when they buy one for their kids. And this is what they become. What people don't realize is that green iguanas can live 25 to 35 years. That is a major commitment to keeping an animal. Most people, as soon as Junior goes off to college, mom and dad don't want to take care of the iguana anymore, so out it goes. All right, that's how we got our iguana problem. This is a female, and you can see this is a mature female. So there's a love bite from a male who is trying to mate with her. All right, tolerance, don't feed them. Harassment, scare them away often. Electric fences or exclusion cages. So if you have very valuable plants, like you have an extremely valuable hybrid hibiscus, you better put it in a cage to keep the iguanas away, or it will be stripped. Live traps, snares. Shooting is usually not an option because most iguanas are in suburban and residential areas. Capture by hand or by noose. Live trapping, usually it's almost exactly the same as with armadillos. Cover the wire so they can't feel it and use some type of bait, usually fruit. And I've used everything from cherry tomatoes to red grapes to Suriname cherries, all kinds of things. Any kind of red fruit is going to be very attractive to them. And then noosing iguanas. We've also been looking at use of snares like at fences. This works well. This may change because these locking snares may not be legal in the future. Okay. And Burmese pythons, yay, another big reptile we have to worry about. And I think that's it. I'm going to stop here and then we will answer questions.
Dr. Kern, thank you so much. You covered a lot of ground over the last hour, and we do have quite a few questions. So I'll start fielding those. What are some good deterrents to keep armadillos out of garden beds? Is there any guidance you can provide? Fences.
That's really it. And it doesn't have to be a tall fence to keep an armadillo out of a garden. So a fence that's only a foot high above the ground will do a good job of keeping them out.
Does it have to go in the ground at all, or?
It helps to keep them from trying to dig underneath it, but it doesn't absolutely have to.
Okay, fantastic. Can trapped armadillos be relocated, or do they require euthanization?
They are not a rabies vector species. I would be a little apprehensive about relocating them, partly because of the current problem we're having with leprosy in them. They're not bad eating. Just have to be sure that you wear gloves when you're dressing them out, and be very careful not to cut yourself while you're dressing them, because of the potential of leprosy.
Okay. For poisons, for moles, what happens if an owl eats the mole after it's been poisoned?
It's not likely to happen. With the anticoagulants, there is the potential of secondary poisoning. But with moles and gophers, they're usually going to die in their burrows. Just like when we get sick, we're going to go to bed, right? So they're going to go to their deep nest, and they're not going to pop out onto the surface usually.
Okay, fantastic. You mentioned that rats will eat snails. Will they eat slugs as well?
Yes, they will.
Okay. Are rats attracted to compost piles?
They can be. If the compost pile is not properly managed, like a lot of people just take their kitchen waste and throw it on top, that's going to be attractive to raccoons. What you should do is when you add any kind of kitchen waste, first of all, don't add any meat, and then be sure to turn the pile or bury the stuff in the pile so it will be rapidly decomposed.
All right, that makes perfect sense. And, manage that pile. Don't just throw a bunch of stuff in.
Right. It needs to be turned on a regular basis, and that will prevent a lot of problems like ants getting into the pile.
Terrific. Will rats jump from trees onto the roof?
Yes. So we always say you want to make sure that you have the trees cut back so that they are at least 6 feet away from your roof. And that's true for squirrels too. Squirrels will jump from tree branches to land on the roof.
Okay, great. You already talked about this a little bit, so I'm not going to ask that one. It was about effective controls for iguanas. So you covered that.
Well, I think there was a question about repellents. And as far as I know, there really isn't any good repellents. No chemical repellents. Harassment works pretty well. Dogs work pretty well. But I haven't found any chemical that does a really good job of keeping iguanas away.
Yeah, that's a problem. We just have to hopefully keep reducing their population over time. Can consumers purchase quantities less than 4 pounds? I assume we're thinking rodent bait.
Right now, you can, if you go to like a feed store, someplace where farmers normally get their materials. So they are not restricted use pesticides yet. That's going to change. And then, so once they make that change to the label and they become restricted use products, then you would have to go to your county extension office and take the exam and get a restricted use pesticide license.
Big changes. For rodenticides, how do we dispose of single-use bait stations?
When they are empty, well, in Broward County, because a lot of our garbage is incinerated, you would just take the empty station and put it in the garbage, usually double bag it and then put it in the garbage. But the product label will tell you how to dispose of it. So read the label.
Label is the law. Fantastic. How do you legally dispose of excess unused anticoagulant rat poison?
Again, you're going to go ahead and wrap it up, double bag it, and it can either be in a plastic bag or paper bag, and put it in the trash. And so it'll either be buried or it's going to go to the incinerator.
Fantastic. We're down to the last couple of questions.
Okay.
What can you do about possums in the yard?
Why do you want to do anything necessarily? They're there eating, they'll eat the ticks in your yard. They generally are not destructive. Now, I will admit that the opossums in my yard irritate my dogs to no end, which is kind of irritating. But, they're not really going to do any damage. They do not vector any disease to our livestock, our pets. They are generally not a problem. If they are getting into the attic, then it might be necessary to trap them, exclude them, and then release them back in the yard, and then they'll go someplace else. But generally, I don't particularly worry about opossums. They're not generally going to do a lot of damage. They might eat some fruit in your garden. But for example, I don't think I've ever seen any evidence of them eating citrus. Raccoons will eat citrus. I don't think I've ever seen possums eat citrus. I think it's too acid for them.
Okay. And the last question I've got for you. What about Cuban tree frogs?
Okay, Cuban tree frogs. Main thing is, if you find them breeding in things like bird baths, empty the bird baths. If you catch adults that you need to euthanize, the simplest way to euthanize either Cuban tree frogs or giant toads is to take lidocaine, lidocaine gel, like Oragel, those kind of things. Put it on their belly until they go to sleep, bag them up, put them in the freezer, the deep freeze. But you have to anesthetize them first before you put them in the freezer, or that's considered inhumane. And I saw there was a question about rabbit repellents. There are a couple of different repellents that can be applied to plants. You have to look at the individual repellents because some of them cannot be used on human food plants. Others of them can be. They're usually going to be taste deterrents. Generally, the main thing to do to keep rabbits out of a garden is fencing. Either electric fencing or a relatively low fence is going to keep them out. And if you use something like a wooden fence, just some sheets of parts of plywood that are 18 inches high, that's usually enough to keep them out. If they can't see to the other side of the fence, they are not going to jump over it. If you use something like a welded wire fence, it's probably going to have to be a little bit higher. A lot of times rabbit fences are usually about 3 feet, 2.5, 3 feet tall.
Fantastic. Bill, you covered so much information. You answered all our questions. Thank you so very much. This information was, very much needed. I don't know if you got a chance to see what was in the chat box, but people really appreciated the information. I'd like to remind everybody to please make sure that you do your survey when you see that pop up. Also, next month, our professional webinar is scheduled for October 10th at 10 a.m. and we'll focus on the history and future of invasive plants in Florida. Bill, once again, thank you so very much. Have a great rest of your day, and everybody, we'll see you next month.
Okay, thank you.